Here I am. So, well, since a lot of you probably think that we of the Hollywood progressive community of the 30s and 40s were just liberals and that HUAC unjustly accused us of being communists, I want to put your little minds to rest at the outset, which is that I was a member of the Communist Party of the United States of America from February 43 to February 49 when I left the country. And I'm very proud of those 6 years. I didn't do anything Stalinist or tyrannical or terrible. I'm really proud of all the things we did during those years, from build our Screenwriters Guild, and I won't go into that now, but what I really want to say is, I think all of you wonder, how did a 22-year-old girl who was born in a penthouse at 88 Central Park West, does everybody hear me? Mm-hmm. How does such a girl, born into a fairly well-to-do family, become a communist, and why? And that brings us to world history. Why? What was there about the 30s that would have made such a person do that? Well, first of all, there was the Spanish Civil War. There was the rise of fascism, the rise of anti-Semitism in Germany, Nazism. But I think the big thing that hit me during high school was that the bombing of the civilian population of Madrid, the seeing a democratically elected government bombed and put an end to, I think Spanish Civil War and the rise of fascism was a big thing in the way I developed. Now, there were two other things. One was that you have no idea. If you think we have a recession and that maybe it's going to be an economic depression, you have no idea of what it was like in the early 30s all over this country. Not a few homeless people on corners, but whole families, foodless, shelterless, with nothing, and all over the place, millions and millions. To see that and to see capitalism not working made one wonder, was there an economic system that did work? And of course, there was the third thing. There was a young country that had found an economic socialism and seemed to be, well, everybody was certainly employed at a time where we had millions and millions who weren't. And at that time, it was very difficult to realize, I'm not making excuses, but you didn't realize the tyranny, the horrible, the way that Stalinism developed. I should have known, yes, but we'll go into that. So there were three reasons why I became a communist. Now, I didn't become a communist just like that. In high school, my sister, who was the first girl to go to Columbia Law School, came home the first day and said, half of Columbia Law School is Trotskyist and half is communist. And so I said, well, what are you? And she said, I'm going to try to be American socialist. This gives you a feeling of New York in the 30s. I think by going to theater with a mother who just wanted to see every play. I went, during junior high school and high school, I went to every Friday night and every Saturday matinee to a play on Broadway. That meant that I saw not only all the great American theater, but it meant I saw the group theater, I saw the Clifford Odets plays, and they had a very big effect on me. Waiting for Lefty, the play about a strike, Awake and Sing, And then down on 14th Street, there was something called the Theater Union, and they put on a play called Black Pit, which was by Albert Morse and George Sklar, later blacklisted. But it gave you an honest feeling about miners in America. Anyway, there was this atmosphere, remember, in the Depression, and it was hard not to be left. Now, I wasn't so lovely. At high school, some kids from the ASU came to me and said, well, you certainly want to join the American Student Union. You're very, progressive and so forth. And I said, no, I don't want to. It'll keep me from a good college. And I was very careful, even in college, and I went away to Radcliffe, girls' part of Harvard. And even it happened again. And I wasn't afraid of not getting into something or other, but I was afraid of any organization. I tell you this because until I was 21 and went out to Hollywood, I was I tried not to be organized in any way. And my sympathies were all over the place. I remember that at Harvard, I majored in government, and my tutor was Fritz Morstein Marx. He wasn't Jewish, but he had escaped from Nazi Germany. He had been an administrator in the city of Hamburg. And when I indicated to him how left I was, he said, don't get taken in, and he talked about the trials in the Soviet Union. So I was warned hither and yon. But this is what happened. This was the arc. I got married to a great scientist my junior year. He was getting his PhD at MIT, and there would be no information age, there would be no computers, there would be no nothing. You can Google him. His name, my first husband, was Claude Shannon, Shannon. And when he got his PhD, after we got married my junior year, and when he got his PhD, he got a National Research Fellowship in Mathematics that he took to the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton. Now, remember, I was a girl, and being a girl and a wife of those days, I followed my husband. I missed my senior year at Radcliffe. However, I did something almost better. When I was in Princeton, I tried in the beginning to go down to Rutgers University, which wasn't that far, and they wanted me to come, even the days I didn't have classes, wanted me to go to chapel at 8 o'clock over icy roads from Princeton to New Brunswick. And I didn't want to do that. So instead, I was sort of hanging around the Institute for Advanced Study where my husband was working and pouring tea for Einstein. I didn't know him well. I knew Picasso well, but Einstein not well. However, at those teas, Mrs. Van Ittersum, who was the secretary of the economic section of the League of Nations, which was no longer in Geneva because World War II had broken out, and the economic section of the League and the League Library moved into the Institute for Advanced Study. And she heard me talking French, and I was bilingual English-French, and she said, we need you. And that was my first job. She took me upstairs to where 12 Scandinavian economists were working away. Actually, what they were doing was publishing world production of rice, world production of wheat, the stuff that they had been doing in Geneva and which they couldn't do anymore there. So I spent a year really around them and working for the League, and I began to be very interested in what was then known as Sweden the Middle Way, because they were all, down to the last man, there were 12 men, and they were all for Swedish kind of socialism. So there was that, And at the end of a year or 2 years of marriage, I was sort of married to, did any of you see A Beautiful Mind? That's what I was married to, and I didn't think I wanted to have children by him, and I had to run for it to Princeton, to the train at Princeton Junction. Anyway, I came home to my mother in New York with a massive allergy attack, eyes running, nose running, I had never had allergy before. And my sister, the lawyer, said, well, if we can get him to sign divorce papers, then you can get a divorce. And I said, yes, but he doesn't want to. And she said, leave it to me. And she went down to Princeton, and she convinced Claude that I really loved him, and if he gave me a divorce, we could get married again later, and everything would be all right. He signed, and my mother and I left immediately for Reno. We filed divorce, and we didn't stay in Reno. I just want to give you this little highlight of what it was like. We went down to Las Vegas for the 6 weeks that you had to stay in Nevada to have your residence. And there was one hotel in Las Vegas. It was called El Rancho Vegas, and it had in it a nightclub and a casino and a restaurant and a cafe and all sorts of things, but there was nothing else in Las Vegas but this one hotel. And outside there were horses. So I rode every day for 6 weeks. And at the end of 6 weeks, when my residence was established, Mother and I went back to Reno and picked up my divorce, and she said, there's something I don't understand. Why are we going back to New York when we're so near Hollywood? And you see, she had a sister, and it wasn't for her sister's sake who was out in California, but for her nephew, whom I think she was in love with and whom later I was in love with. He wrote, if any of you have seen Destry Rides Again with Marlene Dietrich and Jimmy Stewart and all the W.C. Fields pictures. And he was a lovely, charming, wonderful guy. And he was progressive. And he helped organize the Screenwriters Guild. And I arrived on my 21st birthday, September 15th, 1941, in Hollywood. He came to Pasadena to get us off the chief, took us out to the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, installed us, and he said to me, I'm coming back for you later tonight. Remember, it was my 21st birthday. And he took me to a showing of Chapayev, my first Soviet film. And in those days, Soviet films couldn't be shown in cinemas. They just didn't do it. The Hollywood progressive community had to rent a hall, either a veterans hall, I don't know what it was exactly. But Henry opened the doors of this huge hall where there were about 400 people, and he said, this is the Hollywood progressive community. And as I went in, I saw Lionel Stander, Humphrey Bogart, almost everyone you can think of who was progressive, Edward G. Robinson, Gail Sundergaard, stars. Of course, most of the 400 were writers and directors and were not stars. But I did see many faces I knew from the screen. And I guess I fell in love, not just with the look of them, but afterwards. That night we went to the Trocadero, which was the very inn nightclub at the base of Sunset Plaza Drive. And I was with Vera Caspary, who wrote Laura, which probably doesn't mean anything to you, but these were all film people. And I guess I was just glamorized, fell in love with the Hollywood progressive community. And they said, well, you should go to school. There's a school for writers. You want to write. Now, the reason I wanted to write was that when I was 9 in Paris, my parents had taken me to the Paramount. And I had seen a film called Hot News with Bibi Daniels, and she was a newspaper reporter, a sob sister, and she jumped from one spike of the Statue of Liberty to the other. She jumped 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get a hold of a murderer she was writing a story about. Well, that convinced me I wanted to be a reporter, and I stuck with that and realized that I wanted to be a writer. And when I got to Hollywood, I realized I wanted to be a screenwriter, which explains some of this. And the School for Writers had, well, I don't know if it means anything to you, Waldo Salt teaching screenwriting, all the great screenwriters, you know, Trumbo and everyone taught at the school. So it was very exciting, and my first year was really went by before I met my husband with me writing screenplays. I did get my job as I wrote a letter to the 4 metropolitan dailies, the Los Angeles, the 2 Hearst papers, and the Los Angeles Daily News, and the Los Angeles Times, and I asked for a job. And the only one who answered was the Herald Examiner, a Hearst paper. Jim Richardson said, okay, so come down now. And when I got down there, downtown LA, he said, you know, I don't really want a girl in the city room. I hate the idea of it. But every time I break in a guy, he gets drafted, and all that training and everything goes for naught, and I have no one. So I'll give you a chance. And at the end of the first week, he knew that I had lied about my newspaper experience, and I was about to be fired, but I fell on a wonderful story, which I'm not going to tell you, which is in the book. In downtown, in the Red and the Blacklist, in downtown LA, where there was nothing, we're talking 1942, it was just black night. I saw, when I came out of my supper across from the paper, I saw a boy and a dog, and the boy was just plodding along, the dog was following him, and I went over to them and said, what are you doing downtown LA? And he said, I got my dog out of the pound, and I've got a nickel for the ride back to Santa Monica, but the bus won't take me with the dog. So I said, well, you come upstairs with me, and I'll drive you back home to Santa Monica. Well, this boy's father had just been killed overseas. This boy's mother worked in a war factory, and it was, well, I took him home, and I mean, I wrote the story, and he fell asleep in the photography room, and my friend Abby, who could never get out on a story, great photographer, took a picture of the boy sleeping on the dog, and I wrote the story, and the next morning when I came in, and Jim Richardson barked, Barzman, and I thought, well, now it's 6 days and he's going to fire me. It's the 7th day. And he threw the newspaper at me. It was in 2 sections. The second section was the whole page. The top half was the boy asleep on his dog, and the bottom half was my story with a byline on my 6th day at the paper. So then Mr. Hearst called from the ranch and said this was the kind of story he wanted in the paper, and he was watching my career. And now nobody could fire me. Jim Richardson wanted to, and the managing editor wanted to, and the managing editor wanted to even more, and later on still more, because he put an investigative reporter with a revolver on each hip following me, and who came back and said I was red. And so Mr. Van Edish, the managing editor, told Jim Richardson to fire me, and Jim Richardson said, I can't. Mr. Hearst likes her. So then they called Mr. Hearst, and who said, I don't care what she is, she's a good reporter. So I was set. And they couldn't fire me, and then I met my husband, and well, it was love at first sight, and you'll read that in the book too. I think you will, because we had a great life, actually, in those first years of the progressive community. And I'll tell you the kind of thing we did that I am proud of. In the first place, most of our work was in the Guild, trying to get pensions. Young people today, members of the Guild, who are friends of mine, don't realize that we really struggled for every credits, pensions, the whole bit. So that's one thing we did. And also it was the Roosevelt years, and we canvassed for, we did, you know, political election work and so forth. But what we really did, the Hollywood progressive community, and I'm talking about all card-carrying communists, we did very wonderful things in the community. For example, maybe some are a little bit, we heard that the lettuce workers in the Salinas Valley had only very short tools, and we hired a truck and we bought long, you know, so that they wouldn't hurt their backs, long handled tools, and we brought them up there to the Salinas Valley. What else did we do? The Sleepy Lagoon kids were up for a murder that they had been on one side of LA, and they were charged with a murder on the other side where they couldn't have been. We raised the money for their defense. We told people about it. We wrote for the People's World and the Daily Worker. And we really carried on a very wonderful community work. Everything we did was very exciting and wonderful, and we saw the fruits of what we did. But more important than anything, I don't think there was ever a community like this, maybe Athens, where intellectuals, creative people helped each other, were excited about each other's projects, and didn't expect anything for themselves. It was an atmosphere we don't know about anymore, but that was very, very wonderful. And then, of course, lying in wait was reaction. All the people who, well, and especially the studios who did not like, who had started a company union and did not like the fact that the Screenwriters Guild was being formed and being used and so forth. So I guess what I really want to do is jump a little bit, because this period that was so good in Hollywood went by very fast. It was really from 41 to 47 and at the end of the war. And I do want to say one thing about that: I never would have joined the Communist Party if I had gotten out to Hollywood in June of 1941, before June 22nd, when the Soviet Union was attacked by Hitler, by the Nazis. If I had come out earlier, I wouldn't have done it. But you must realize that by September, the Soviet Union was really fighting our battle, was fighting the Nazis, and it didn't seem as though it was a terrible thing at all to join. Oh, one thing that I should tell you. I didn't like it when I discovered that the party in Hollywood, not in the rest of the country, but the party in Hollywood was underground. You could not tell people that you were a member. You had to hide it. Now, why was that? At first I said, this is not good, I don't want to do that. And my husband, Ben, explained to me that none of us would have jobs. The studios would not have employed us. We never would have had any jobs if it was known that we were communists. So, but I didn't like that. I guess it's sort of funny that, oh, well, I'm having a problem because I know that I'm talking too long about the beginning and there's so much to tell. So that's why the stuttering and the stammering and the wondering which thing to tell you. When the at the end of the war, when people like Ginger Rogers' mother and Adolphe Menjou and began to sponsor the HUAC, the House Un-American Activities Committee, and be friendly witnesses, we realized a bad time was coming, but we didn't realize how quickly and how bad, because the minute the war was over and actually we were sitting, Ben and I were sitting on our lawn at 1290 Sunset Plaza Drive when a beautiful blonde in a convertible turned into our driveway. And of course, I've left out one thing, that in 1947, September, 19 people were subpoenaed to go to Washington to testify, and then that was weeded down to the Hollywood 10, and the 10 went to Washington, and stars like Lauren Bacall and Humphrey Bogart and went to protest the hearings. You need to know that so that you'll understand that when the beautiful blonde turned into our driveway in the convertible and didn't seem to want to get out, she seemed to want to tell us something, but she seemed frightened. And I said, well, come on out, what is it? And at first she said, oh, well, you're having drinks on the lawn and it looks so nice. And I said, that's not why you turned in here. What is it? And she said, I want to warn you, at the bottom of your hill, there are 2 sheriff's cars, and there are guys in the sheriffs stopping every car coming up this hill and asking every car, are they coming to number 1290 Sunset Plaza Drive? That's your house. And she said, did anything happen here? Is there something wrong? And we said, no. And she said, well, they're taking names and they're watching it and so forth. And then Ben said, well, you know, we were going to have a meeting of the committee to defend the Hollywood 10, which was headed by Bogart and Baby Bacall. But when they got back from Washington to Warner Brothers, they were told that if they stayed on that committee, they would be suspended. Imagine, to 2 stars like that, Jack Warner said they wouldn't work. They would be suspended. So anyway, that was the meeting. We were going to have a meeting at our house, but then the committee was suspended and we didn't have the meeting. So that must have been why we were being watched. But this beautiful blonde said, well, I just wanted to warn you. I don't like this sort of thing that's happening now. And she said, I'm on my way up to Judy Garland's, and there's a party up there, and I'm just an aspiring young actress myself. And she said, I said, my name's Norma, and I shook her hand. She said, my name's Norma too. And we didn't know until 2 years later in Paris, sitting at a cafe on the Champs-Élysées, when Ben held up the Paris Herald Tribune, and he said, my God, it's the blonde in the convertible. It's Marilyn Monroe. She was Norma Jean. She just said, my name's Norma too. Anyway, so we were warned. Now the next thing that happened, you have to understand that the 19, which became the 10 were in contempt of Congress and were blacklisted. And Eddie Dmytryk, who was a friend of ours, couldn't work all that year. And in December of '48, after not working, he somehow got into MGM where Ben was still working. Ben was not yet blacklisted. And he was working on a Lana Turner picture. And the people who were blacklisted, the Hollywood 10, couldn't get into any studio. I don't know how Eddie Dmytryk managed to get in, but he came in, he got to Ben's office, and he threw a book down on Ben's desk, and he said, "You're going to do this." The book was Christ in Concrete, a marvelous book that I had loved in college. And Ben said, "Well, how can I do it? I'm doing this Lana Turner, I'm midway in the thing." And he said, "You'll do it, you owe it to me." And Ben says, "I can't, how can I write two things at the same time?" And Eddie said, "What about nights and weekends?" And Ben looked at me and he said, "Am I going to do this nights and weekends?" And I said, "Yes, because it's a wonderful project. It's everything we ever wanted to say is there. It'll make a great film, and yes, you should do it." So Ben did it, nights and weekends, and this is how, we didn't flee exactly, you see. This is how we got to England and then to France, because Ben wrote it, I typed it, we called Eddie and the producer who wanted to do it, Rod Geiger, and they came one day and they each read a script, and they didn't say if it was good, bad, or indifferent. Eddie had said, "If you do this, I think I can get it made in England." And they took the scripts with them and they left without, hardly saying anything. And then a phone call came in the middle of the night. They didn't know hours at those times, came from England, and it was Eddie, and he said, "I think we've got a deal. I think we've got a production for Christ in Concrete." I had a bad moment, he said, because J. Arthur Rank, that's the guy with the, maybe you don't, who strikes the gong, before he was knighted. Mr. Rank said, "Mr. Dimitrick, there's just one question I want to ask you." And Eddie thought, "Oh my God, here comes the $64 question. Are you or have you ever?" But it wasn't. Mr. Rank said, "Mr. Dimitrick, do you believe in God?" And Eddie stopped for a minute and thought, and he said, put out his hand and said, "Well, if I didn't, I do now." And Eddie said, "We've got a deal if you guys can get on the Queen Mary in New York on Wednesday." I think it was Friday. And somehow or other, we did it. We took my mother with us. We said goodbye to Ben's mother, who said, "I understand they're Cossacks after you." And Ben said, "No, they're not Cossacks, they're US congressmen." And she said, "Cossacks come in all different shapes and forms. Go where there are no Cossacks." So we went, and we arrived in England, which still felt like the war. It had rationing. I was pregnant. We had a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, and one in my tummy, and I was allowed 1 egg a week. I tell you this because the food in England, those 3 months of making Christ in Concrete, was really, well, it just wasn't there. So we were very eager to have a weekend, at least, in Paris, which had food. And the producer chartered a plane, and we went with several people. And when we got there, I said, "Ben, we always said that if we got to Paris, we would look up that guy who spent all the war years near Sunset Plaza Drive, our neighbor, Volodya. He was Jewish, he was Russian, he was French, he was a communist, and so the war years he spent in America." We said we'd look him up. And Ben said, "But we don't have his phone number." And I said, "Yes, but we know where he lives." We walked the 5 flights, and there was Volodya, Vladimir Posner, and he was writing away, and he hugged us and said, "Okay, this is wonderful. You're just at the right moment." He put us in his Peugeot, drove across town, and took us to a place called the Maison de la Pensée, the House of Thought. And he opened the doors. It was very much like that first night in Hollywood, the Hollywood progressive community. This was the Paris progressive community, and there were the faces. My God, if there wasn't Picasso and Simone Signoret and Yves Montand and everyone you can think of. Elsa Triolet, all the left intellectuals of France. And Volodya took us over to Picasso and introduced us as Hollywood screenwriters. And Picasso hugged me and said, "We are the same." And I thought, same? I'm not Spanish, I'm not a painter. He said, "Exilés, exiles." And Ben drew himself up to his full 5 feet 4.5 and said, "We've only been away from the States for 2.5 months." And Picasso roared and said, "Exiles who don't know yet they're exiles." And he took us around to all the wonderful people, introduced us as exiles who don't know yet they're exiles. Anyway, I made up my mind that weekend that we must come and live in France. I think England would have been better for Ben in terms of screenwriting. I think he would have had more jobs in the beginning. Afterwards, he had jobs everywhere, and I should hurry to the point where when we did come to live in France, we couldn't be political at all. We couldn't even march in anything. We couldn't anything because we would have been thrown out in 24 hours. And it looked as though, sometimes it looked as though there was no way of our getting papers. So we put out a feeler. One of the exilés, there was John Barry, Jack Barry, the director, and Jules Dassin, the director, and a lot of screenwriters. And we said to, one of us knew the cultural attaché at the Israeli embassy. And we said, suppose, now this was only because we thought we might be thrown out of France and couldn't go back to America. We said, what if we formed a creative kibbutz? Would Israel like us to, can you present this? We said to the cultural attaché. After all, actually 2 or 3 terrific directors and 2 or 3, 4 great screenwriters, Michael Wilson, Ben. Okay, so she said, I will do it. And in 3 weeks, she had an answer. She called us to La Coupole, and we had a lovely lunch. She said, the answer is, unfortunately, they would love it, but unfortunately, they think that American Jews would never give any more money to Israel if they did it. It's very quiet in here. I don't hear even a gasp. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm saying that here was this fantastic group of people who could have made films in Israel and who were willing to go and do it. And they were too afraid that most of the money they got from American Jews, from reactionary Jews, would not like it and would not give any more money. I guess you do understand that. It just got very quiet. Well, those first few years, I want to say, try to say it faster, and that's this. We were so lucky. We were so fortunate to be in England, in France, to go to Italy, to be in Europe, where we were so welcomed, and so, yes, so welcomed, that by everyone, it was a marvelous thing, because of course we hadn't really thought about it. At least half France was communist, so it didn't, you know, and we weren't communists anymore. We were just nothing but exilés. But what happened was this. Those first years were very rough. We didn't get much. I wrote television, and a lot of the other people who came over, who joined me in writing television, there was a wonderful woman whom you should know about. Her name was Hannah Weinstein. She was a big advertising executive in New York, and she used to put on the Madison Square Garden progressive meetings. And when she got fired from her job, she went around the States raising money so that she could buy a studio in London and employ blacklisted screenwriters on television series. And that, I don't know if you know, but those were the Robin Hoods of those days. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but we all wrote a lot of Robin Hoods, and And then there was another series that she did, and for those first 5 years, we all had a lot of trouble with money. We had no jobs. We did a little television. Even when Ben was employed, frequently he wasn't paid. And even when he was paid, it was very little. So there were hard times. And the other thing about Paris was every 3 or 4 months we had to move. I'm telling you this because the FBI, when I called for our FBI files, had every address that we had been. And during the first 5 years of living in France, if it was every 3 months, so we had to move 3, 4 months, you can see it was about 15 places, whatever it was. It was many, many addresses. They knew they tracked us, and it was hard living. I say this because on the whole, it was magnificent. We spent 30 years in France, and I didn't want to come back when Ben did want to come back in 1979, because it was a wonderful life. And we always felt very guilty about the people who hadn't gotten away, who lived through the Blacklist in America and with their children, and that was very hard. Now, one thing that was very hard for us, or at least, yeah, for many of us, was that our passports got taken away. Mine got taken away in July 1951, so that I couldn't go to Italy, where the film that I had written, I had finally, on my own, without a male collaborator or anybody else, I had finally written a screenplay that was shot at Cinecittà in Rome. And I couldn't go there because in July 1951, my passport was taken by the American Embassy in Paris, and I didn't get it back until July 1958. And I just want to give you a feeling of getting it back. We had a lawyer, Leonard Boudin, who was trying to, all those years, was trying to get back the passports. I need to say one thing about Ben. He was Canadian, born in Toronto, was a naturalized American, and when they took my passport, they took away his citizenship, his American citizenship. He had no citizenship. You don't automatically become Canadian. So because he had no citizenship, stateless, he was given by the French this wonderful accordion, this beautiful blue accordion on which you got visas, and he could travel everywhere. For 7 years, he went everywhere, and I couldn't go anywhere, which was pretty much the way things worked with the movies, too. So, what I wanted to say was the giving back of my passport, because it's so memorable. Last week, I didn't remember this at UCSB, but it's so beautiful. Our lawyer, Leonard Boudin, sent a cable, Norma, go into the US consulate in Nice, and just say, I want my passport. You will get it. So I walked in. Of course, you must know that I shivered when I walked in, because what else could they do to me? I mean, they're taking my passport. They're going to do something else terrible? Well, I was greeted by the young, beautiful, black consul, and she handed me my passport, and she kissed and hugged me, and she said, I'm so glad I am able to do this. She said, I have been in the Far East for the last 7 years. I asked for the Far East because I couldn't bear what they were doing to people like you. And she was so happy, and I was so happy, and we both cried. Anyway, all right. Well, we've gotten us up to. I think you should know that Ben had a tremendously successful career in Europe. He wrote 5 films for Joe Losey. He wrote El Cid. He wrote The Fall of the Roman Empire. Tons and tons of pictures. I won't list them. But he was so upset always and so depressed by the fact that he had been blacklisted, that America didn't want him. And he really, I'm not saying he got sick or that he got heart trouble because of that. It certainly hastened his, well, he had a massive heart attack on the 4th of July, if that doesn't tell you something. I mean, it was a statement. Anyway, Ben and Joe Losey, the director, both were very, very depressed guys. Now, they weren't jolly guys before. I'm not saying that they changed utterly, but they became so depressed during those exiled years, and they were exiled years. They felt rejected, and while we had a great life, and we really did have a great life, we bought a house in Paris, we bought the house, and you'll read the book and you'll even see pictures of the house next to Picasso's house. Now, let me think. I think it's the time where you're going to want to ask questions. Yes?
We could start that now.
Well, maybe if you know, maybe it'll bring some stuff out. I don't know. Whoops! Oh dear.
I've been going up and down that all afternoon.
What do you think, Matt? Do you think that we should just kind of?
You know, I would love to ask you a couple of questions.
Yeah, why don't?
And I'm sure people out here.
And well, I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Let's turn this one on.
All right.
You keep that right up under your chin.
Okay.
And let me tell you. Let me grab a book first of all. Here it is, and if we're lucky, the bookstore has arrived, and these are sitting outside on the table. And what you're going to get, what you're hearing tonight from Norma, doesn't even scratch the surface. You cannot believe how many stories are told in this book. Maybe I'll put this aside. You cannot believe how many stories she has, and the cast of characters that, I mean, this book moves like a car chase. And it is pretty cinematic.
Well, let me just say, you know, I didn't mention that when I talked about Ben's success, Sophia Loren had seen Christ in Concrete. It was a picture that was very popular in Italy, and she loved it, and she loved his screenplay. And so when she decided that she didn't want to do El Cid, that it was just too awful a screenplay, and she wouldn't do it, she made it clear that if Ben came and rewrote, she would do it. Well, he got to Rome with the director, and he had read the screenplay that she wouldn't do in the plane, and when he arrived, he said, "I can't rewrite that." She said, "Well, okay, what can you do? My life is in your hands because I have to start shooting Monday, and I won't shoot that screenplay." And he said, "I'd have to start completely fresh." And Ben wrote a new screenplay from scratch. And he began, they flew on, that was on a Friday that he met with Sophia. Saturday they flew to Madrid. And Saturday he phoned me to London and said, "What'll I do? We have to be ready for Monday, there have to be pages." And there was a boy who sat outside their suite waiting to take a few every time he wrote a few pages, he would go on his Vespa and drive it to the studio, and then they would shoot a few pages, and Ben would write a few more pages. So that's the way El Cid was done, and that was when we met Sophia, and she became a lifelong friend, and she's been simply wonderful.
Let me ask you about that.
Yeah.
Because she is still a dear friend.
Yes, she's still a dear friend.
Talk about what Sophia did in, I think, 1999, when she came to you after a bit of a triumph, I think.
Well, I think you're referring to the Kazan thing.
Yes.
I was notified, I don't know where I found out, that the Academy was planning to give Kazan an Oscar for Lifetime Achievement. I went straight to the Academy and said, "I don't think you should do this," and they said, "It's too late, everybody knows that we're doing it and it can't be stopped." And I said, "Well, we're going to try to stop you." I don't know what I had never been organizational. I mean, when I was young, I never raised money for anything. I never organized anything. But by golly, the idea of the Academy giving an Oscar for lifetime achievement to Kazan, I respected him as a creator. I would have given him, he had 2 Oscars, I would have given him 2 more Oscars for his work. But it seemed to me that giving him an Oscar for his lifetime achievement, what was it? The destruction of 23 lives of the actors of the group theater whom he named, whom I knew. I didn't know, I had seen them on the stage when I was in my teens, but I had become friendly with them when they were at the Actors Lab way later. And to think that this man was ready to destroy these people, it was just too horrible.
You picketed with your grandson.
I picketed with my grandson, Matthew, yes, with Danielle's son.
Yeah, we should mention, by the way, one of Norma's 7 children, Danielle, is sitting in the back, right back there right now, so someone else to talk to a little bit later. Thank you for coming out. Before we get to questions from the audience, there's so many, I've got pages of questions.
Oh, I want to tell you, no,
yeah.
I'm going to interrupt you to say what we did. I raised the money, me who doesn't like to raise money, I raised enough money to take out a full-page ad in Variety and a full-page ad in the Reporter saying that Kazan was a fink, and in every limo that went to the Oscars, on the floor of the limo, there was the Variety and the Reporter, and it asked people not to applaud, and they didn't. And what Matt wants to tell you is that Sophia, before she went to the Oscars that night, had turned on her TV, had made it so to record. And so she saw what went on at the Academy. She saw that at least three quarters of the people did not applaud, that only one corner, less than a fourth, with Charlton Heston, did get up and did applaud. And then when she went home, she saw that on NBC, it looked as if many more had gotten up and applauded him, and the applause was turned up and everything. The television was really a lie. And she said so. She was willing to say so, and she
hugged
did.
You and congratulated.
Yes, she did. Yes.
One other quick story, taking you way back to before you left the country.
Yes.
When you and Ben were running very scared and going all out, even trading homes with a friend.
Oh, Bernie Vorhaus.
So that what you called the Slim Jims.
Yes, that's right.
With you, the FBI?
Now they weren't after us. They were after Bernard Vorhaus, the director who directed my picture, Finishing School, at Cinecittà. They had a subpoena for him, and he particularly wanted to, I mean, we wanted to change houses because they had a pool.
But you were in jeopardy because you got a call from an attorney.
Yes, that's true.
Who was fronting for a certain congressman.
That's
who
right.
Made such a generous offer of assistance.
The congressman was Nixon.
Richard Nixon.
One
of the powers behind Hugh.
And they called in Ben and said, if you put up, it was some odd number, like $11,000, $10,000 for the congressman and $1,000 for the lawyer who would do it, then Ben would never have any problem.
And you didn't take advantage of it.
And we did not take advantage of it. I think it was good that we left for England.
One more, and then we will go to you folks. I don't know which of us that is.
Is that this?
Maybe they could turn that down a little bit.
Is that
It's
this?
this one, actually.
Oh.
Don't worry. The one thing that Ben never forgave you for. And there were a lot of things he did forgive you for.
Yes, I know the thing he didn't forgive me for, even on his dying bed.
Yeah.
Deathbed. Picasso wanted to use, we had on our property a studio the people who owned our house before us it was an English sculptor, and there was this big studio independent from the old farmhouse. And our mutual friend, Picasso's and ours, Marcel, had told Picasso about it and said it would be a wonderful place for you to cut your lithos. And he didn't like going all the way to Vallauris to cut his lithos. So he called up Ben and he said, can I use your studio? And I said, absolutely not, because we had a lot of little children running around, and I knew that if Picasso was at our place all the time, the tourists would come, they'd come in and out of the driveway, they'd drive in, we would know. We had moved down to Mougins to have peace and quiet and a sort of a country life. But most of us, we did know each other. There was what's her name wrote a book about it. It's a very good book, and I can't think of it for the moment. About the German, they entertained a lot. There was a connection. We were just friends. But I'll think about that and give you the name of the book when I can. Yes? Later.
Other questions? Let me ask another one. Another friend, Ingrid Bergman.
Yes.
There were blacklists and there were blacklists, and she told you that she was kind of on a different kind of blacklist.
She was on a different kind of blacklist because Americans didn't like her morals, because she had gone off with Rossellini and left her husband, and Americans just did not accept that. Yes, it was. She certainly was blacklisted in America for a long time.
But in a sense...
For that.
Yeah. In a sense, though, you went through a period where even beyond what the government did with you as a blacklisted writer,
yeah,
you didn't write for a long time.
Oh, yeah, having nothing to do with the black. Yeah. I blacklisted myself.
Exactly. Have you figured out why?
Well, it's funny. On the way here tonight, we were thinking about it. There were periods in my life where I worked very, very, very hard and defied everything, and it didn't matter that I even had a lot of little children, and there was like the first 5 years in France when I was writing television like mad and wrote a film and worked and I don't know how I did all that. And then somehow in the period after we went down to Mougins, I became like the chatelaine, the lady of the castle. I just stopped writing. I did have maybe more children but it wasn't the children, can't be blamed on the children. It was also that our house, 10 minutes from the Cannes Film Festival, became the center of international film folk, and I seemed to be always entertaining, but that doesn't explain anything either, because I also grew golden bantam corn, and there's a period of about 10 years. I find with a lot of, what we discussed tonight on the way here was maybe nowadays men have that kind of a period where they don't need to work so hard at something, where they're not driven and they take time off to live a little. Maybe that's more possible. It used to be that you would find women writers and women painters who did that from time to time. You'd find suddenly a barren period of their lives where they seemed to be very much into life and not writing and not accomplishing a lot.
Fortunately, that barren period came to an end. Say something about your second book, which is about to come out.
Yeah, the second
nonfiction book, I should say.
It came out.
It is out already.
It's out, okay. And I'm writing the screenplay of it. It's called The End of Romance, and it's about a 12-day trip I took with the cousin Henry, the screenwriter that I sort of adored, and it's about a trip to Cremona in 1973, Cremona and Venice. And it's, I don't know how much, well, it was very exciting because when I saw Henry, my cousin, whom I loved so much in New York, he was ready to die. He had gotten what he called his first rejection slip in 50 years. He was about 70. And it wasn't a rejection slip, it was that his publisher didn't want to publish his latest novel, historical novel. And Henry was ready to die. Henry was ready to curl up and die. He didn't get out of his bathrobe. When I saw him, he looked as though it was the end. And I tried to think of things to liven him up. I talked about my children first. Then I remembered a story he had wanted to do about a great violin maker, Guarneri del Gesù, really as good a violin maker as Stradivarius. And I reminded him of it, and he suddenly said, oh, yes, I did want to do it. And I did want to do that. Oh, I do want to do that. Color began to come back into his cheeks, and he said, but I'd have to go to Cremona. And I said, well, is that bad? Cremona, Italy? And he said, yeah, but... And what happened was this. I invited him to come to Europe to stay with us in Mougins, and I thought he would go on to Cremona and research his novel. What he did was he tricked me. He arrived in Genoa on the Leonardo da Vinci, and I had come from Mougins to pick him up and bring him back to Mougins to our house. And he managed to make the day go by so that it was dark, too dark to take the curves in the night and drive back home. And he found out that we were very near, not he found out, he knew already, he had planned all this. And he really hijacked me and my friend from college, and we went to Cremona, and while researching his book, I stumbled on the mystery of the origins of the violin, a very exciting thing, what happened in 1500, which the 1973 neo-fascists, Italian fascists, did not want known. It was, let's put it this way, they did not want one more scientific or cultural thing to be Jewish. And I won't tell you what happened in 1500. You're going to have to read my book, second book.
This was the secret that scientists are still puzzling over.
Yeah, but
how these incredible instruments were produced.
I had to go back in 1990 because when I was there in 1973, as fast as I would find out something, the neo-fascists had a network. They went into the archives, they pulled out the material that I needed, and I couldn't do it then, and they nearly ran me off a mountain road. Maybe to kill me, maybe just to put the fear of the Lord in me, but it was real. Anyway, that's a very exciting book, the second one.
And that's the end of
the
romance.
End of romance.
Right.
It's really the end of romanticizing because a 50-year-old adolescent began to look at reality and stop romanticizing about everything: politics, love, sex, life.
We need to let you get on to a movie. Does anyone else have any question? Yes.
Yes.
Actually, two questions. One, or maybe you can talk to the people here why you left the Communist Party.
Mm-hmm.
The second question has to do with your conversation a moment ago. Anything to do with this quote, barren year and 7 children?
First,
let me take the Communist Party because I think that's fun. I left because I left America. I was no longer an American communist, never became one after that, still believed, I'll give you, actually when the Khrushchev report came out, you would think that I would have been so disabused of,
And this is the Khrushchev report on the true evil of the Stalin.
Yeah, 1958. And so how did I take it? I said, isn't it wonderful that a country can admit its terrible errors and the frightful things it's done? Now they'll turn over a new leaf and they'll be decent.
But then came 1968.
But then came 1968. And I am ashamed that not until 1968 did I really And we're not talking about I wasn't a communist anymore, I wasn't political, I wasn't anything, but that I really saw through it right before my eyes. May 68 in Paris, I saw that the Communist Party, because it was not at the head of the revolt of the students and workers, really betrayed them, sent the Renault workers back to the plant, to the automobile plants, to work, put an end to the strikes because they weren't at the head of it. I saw what they were like, and I was disabused of the whole thing.
And we should note that two of Danielle's brothers were on the barricades.
Yes,
They were
and
thoroughly-
sister.
And sister, okay. Your other question was, what, about how she came out of that
Yeah,
barren?
You asked her a question about this barren period of her life.
Oh, that.
I'm wondering, you're a woman with 7 children, is that really barren? I mean, is there a parallel happening?
Well, I managed with children, because I did. I think if we hadn't been in France with wonderful people to help with the children, I could not have done what I did. But I don't know exactly. You're asking about the barren period, and I don't know psychologically or why it happened.
Well, psychologically, didn't Ben play a role in this? Because I got the feeling he didn't really so much want you writing on your own.
Well, we're not going to blame him for the barren period. Not tonight.
It was
we
your
aren't.
choice. It was your choice still.
There were plenty of things Ben did that didn't. For example, he did not stand up for me in the very beginning when I really wrote Never Say Goodbye, and Warner Brothers immediately wanted to buy it because Errol Flynn wanted to do a comedy. And our agent got a good chunk of money for it for those days, and we were supposed to, the two of us, Ben and me, were supposed to go write the screenplay. It was an original story, you see, but very, very full, 120 pages as long as a screenplay. And whoever it was at Warner Brothers said, "We want Ben, but we never heard of her." And Ben didn't stand up for me, I guess the agent didn't, and I didn't stand up for myself. But
But
a
keep
lot
in mind the times as well.
Yes, I'm keeping in mind the times.
Oh, I don't mean the time here.
No,
I
the
mean
times.
those times.
I'm
yes.
keeping in mind the times. But it's amazing how much of that stuff still happens. I know there was a little item in the Los Angeles Times yesterday that said that the percentage of women writing and directing Hollywood films is something like 21%, which even though we've come a long way, we haven't come such a long way, right?
Can I get you to close? Maybe either you can read it or I will if you like.
I don't have my reading glasses. You can read.
All right. It's a quote at the very end of the book
Yes.
from Sophia.
I have, my pocketbook's there and my reading glasses are in it. If someone hands me, can you
Wanna grab
take
them? Sure, of course.
Yeah.
I'll hold these.
Okay.
In the meantime, I'll remind you.
You see my pocketbook?
Right outside the door. Do they have the books out there? Okay. The books
Pocketbook.
are right outside.
Oh, here it is. Here it is.
And the Blacklist,
Here it is.
The Red and the Blacklist by Norma Barzman. On Nation Books, I can tell you it's available from Amazon and lots of other online providers, and of course, right outside there today. Norma, are you going to be able to stick around for a little bit
Of course.
and sign a few of
Of
these
course.
and talk to
Pleasure.
folks?
Absolutely.
Okay. Here's the quote that is on the second to last, the penultimate page of the book, and on to the last page, which, by the way, has an extensive reader's guide following it. There are lots of footnotes in this book, but it starts right down there at the bottom.
Ben once had confided to Larry St. Clair, living through the Blacklist and exile was like having gone to war. It was a rich and rewarding experience, but I wouldn't want to go through it again. That, in turn, recalled to me the words of Salka Viertel. That's who wrote the book that you asked about. No matter how hard it is for a man to face exile, it is always doubly hard for the woman who must hold it all up, keep the ship from sinking, the wife, mother, who must also buoy up the spirits of a neurotic artist husband. Salka could have been talking about me or any of the wives of the Blacklist. Despite Ben's brilliant film career in Europe, he was bitter. I could have been bitter. My writing career was nipped in the bud. But so much came to me. Perhaps it's harder for a woman to have a successful career, but easier for her to have a fulfilling life. Perhaps the important skills are the ability to adapt and not to be too fixed on a single goal. Right now, for example, I have more than one goal. At Vienna's Jewish Museum, I came across a Marcuse quote urging us to remember the effects of the Holocaust on our culture. All at once, I realized it could apply to the Blacklist. We need to inscribe on our memory tablets the humanist contributions made to our culture by the progressives of the 30s and 40s, and be mindful of how the Blacklist and the fear it engendered mutilated and degraded our culture for generations. At the retrospective in Vienna, I was surprised to see a film of the early 1940s, Smash Up, written by, rigid in quotes, John Howard Lawson, head of the Hollywood section of the Communist Party. I felt it could have been written by a young feminist woman writer today. In 1999, along with all the other blacklisted writers, I received a Lifetime Achievement Award from UCLA's graduating screenwriting class. They explained, in the light of the Academy's honoring Kazan, the students felt that whether we, the blacklisted, wrote B films or Oscar-winning ones, we deserved an award for the way we lived our lives, for the choice we made, not to destroy others to save our own careers and for our own small victories. This memoir is one woman's personal history of those small victories.
Norma, thank you for sharing some of that life with us today.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. You were great.